Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Sunday afternoon, December 4th, and we're now entering week 15 of Political Science 1013 for the fall 2022 term. Everyone, the end of the term is approaching and the holidays. I will probably get one more message out to you a week from today. 2 weeks from today, December 18th, grades are due. So there probably won't be much point to getting more than one more message out. So look for one more message from me about a week from today, and that more than likely will be our last video that we'll be getting out to you for the term. Okay, everybody, what we have left is the final exam, the term papers, and one last quiz that you were asked to take Tuesday. Two of the articles you were asked to look at for the quiz are from the New York Times, and they're both by congressional reporter Carl Hulse. One of them is about Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer, who will continue as Majority Leader because the Democrats have held on to the Senate by a narrow margin. The other is a more recent piece called What's Wrong with the Senate? Then you have a piece about Representative McCarthy from the Wall Street Journal, Representative Kevin McCarthy, who may become Speaker, although it's not 100% confirmed at this point. They will meet shortly after the 1st of January to convene the new Congress and hold an election for Speaker. The Republicans will nominate McCarthy, but he needs 218 votes. And he may lose a couple of the Republican House members who think he's not conservative enough. So it remains to be seen on that, who the speaker will be. Okay, so you have those three articles to read for a quiz on Tuesday the 6th, and that will be our last quiz. We will be done with our quizzes and discussions at that point. Now, everybody, today, Sunday, or tomorrow, Monday, I plan to be getting an announcement out for the final exam, which will be available for 48 hours on the 13th and 14th next week, give or take a day or two. Okay, now it will cover units 5, 6, 7, and 8 with 10 or 15 questions included from the quiz 5, 6, 7, and 8 material. So be sure you have looked at all that material, even if you have skipped some of those quizzes. Everyone needs to have taken at least 5 out of the 8 quizzes, and if you need to make up a quiz, please contact me. Term papers, I've heard from 1 or 2 students on term papers. Remember, a term paper is not absolutely required, but it can help you. It can help your grade. I would like to have them by Thursday. Let's see now. That would be, let's see, today is the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Thursday the 15th, I believe. I believe that's right. That will give me time to look at them, get grades on them, and get grades turned in by that following weekend. So by that Thursday of the last week of class after final exams, that's the 15th, I believe, if you possibly can. If I have to look at 1 or 2 things that Friday or Saturday, I can. But if you can give me a couple of days to get the things graded and get the grades on them and get the grades turned in, that would be helpful. Okay. All right, so we have term papers, quizzes, final exam yet to come. Everyone, I think I've spoken a bit last week about Unit 8 on the United States Congress. Let me say just a few words about what you'll find at the very end of that unit. We discuss the budget process as a special case of the legislative process. We also mention the reconciliation process. Okay, if a measure is introduced under budget reconciliation, it cannot be filibustered. Okay, the budget has to be passed, so they took steps to prevent the budget from being filibustered by introducing the so-called reconciliation process. Anything that is classified as budget reconciliation cannot be filibustered. So that sometimes puts the Senate parliamentarian in an awkward position. That's an official who sometimes has to decide whether a measure is budgetary or not. One thing we've mentioned to everybody, you have that chart in your notes, and you also find a chart like that in most textbooks. I believe there's a chart like that in your textbook about how a bill becomes law. That's what we call regular order. But notice, I believe we've mentioned the past decade or two, they've very often gotten away from regular order because of the stark division and inability to come to a compromise very often between the two parties in Congress. Sometimes the leadership of each party have to meet with each other to hammer out agreements over legislation, and very often that legislation will go straight to the floor of the House and Senate rather than going through the committee and subcommittee process. That's kind of an awkward turn that the legislative process has taken the past decade or two. Many members are upset about that. They would like to see us return to regular order more often. The committees and subcommittees are still there, and they still do a lot of work on routine legislation. But very often when legislation is controversial at all, the regular order is bypassed. The leadership comes to an agreement over legislation and then directs it straight to the floor of the House and Senate. That's the kind of thing that's discussed in the article that you'll be reading that's entitled, What's Wrong with the Senate? We also talk about the views of Edmund Burke, the great British statesman from around the time of the American Revolution, and his views on the role of the legislator. We'll take a look at that. What you'll find is that Burke believed that the legislator should be a trustee, although more often than not these days we find legislators look at their role as that of a delegate. Be sure you have that distinction straight. You might get an item or two about that on the exam. And then, after all that, I have some remarks to make at the very end of the Unit 8 class notes about the course as a whole and the condition that the United States of America is in at this time. All right, so then we have our quiz on Tuesday the 6th, term papers that will be due by the 15th, if at all possible, if you can get those in, and then our final exam, I believe, will be open for 48 hours on the 13th and 14th next week. Okay, then we'll have a brief message a week from now, and that will be our last message of the term. Any questions, issues, or difficulties, please contact me either through the course website or at david.cole@opsu.edu. If any work needs to be made up, discussions, quizzes, please contact me. I can reopen quizzes at any time. Okay. So we'll have one more brief message a week from today, and at that point we'll be ready to look at any term papers that may have come in, and our final exam will be just a couple of days away at that point. So contact me if I can be of help to you in any way. And we'll be talking to you one last time a week from now at this time.